Get in love with the problem is the first time I had opportunity to have to read this book. Uri, it's a pleasure to have you here in Bogota and as well to have a conversation with you.
Thank you.
Is it your first time here in Colombia?
No, I've been here many times, and I occasionally speak here at different events. I was here last year, I was here the year before, and I think that my first time here was actually back in 1990 or so.
Oh.
And I have to admit that Bogota have changed a lot since then.
Well, traffic is not one of the main things, and as I mentioned, traffic, the first app or the first business that you create was founding Waze, which is one of the main apps used in Colombia. Let's talk a little bit about that and then what happened after. But first of all, what was the first thoughts of creating Waze? Why did you create Waze?
Enamórate del Problema. I hate traffic jams. Right? I hate traffic jams. And you know, for me, in many cases, what drives me into building a startup is frustration. So I ran into something that I tell myself, no, there must be a way to change that. And it was only later that we realized that what we really need is to crowdsource the traffic information and then guide people to avoid that. What you really need is someone ahead of you on the road tell you what's going on, right? You don't care about this person as long as they tell you what's going on. And that's the magic of Waze. We crowdsource everything.
How was that crowdsourcing that you created with Waze, and how long did it took it for?
Waze is a red social de conductores para conductores. So you actually work for the rest of the drivers, and you get the value from the driver ahead of you, right? So it's like paid forward. The drivers ahead of you tell you what's going on, and you are telling the drivers behind you what's going on. And this is really the magic because it works in a way that you really you really like the value, and you don't care about what you need to do in order to provide the value. Now, in reality, you create more than 10x value to other drivers than what you get out of the application. So this is where the new balance or the new equilibrium is being created, because you work very little and you get a lot. But actually, what you create to other drivers is way more than what you get yourself.
Something that I love about the book is that Wozniak is the one who makes the prologue of your book, and he says that he has been in multiple events and conversations from people speaking about entrepreneur and businesses, but you're the only one who gives these tips and information in a different way. What makes you different from other people who makes this and whoever sold a unicorn?
You know, I'm an entrepreneur. That's obvious, right? I built so far 2 unicorns, and I keep on building, and I'll have more. But I'm also a teacher. And so I will feel equally rewarded if I build stuff myself or I guide someone to build it. And then what happens is that your way that you deliver information is in order for it to be used. So I don't care if people are listening or not, but as long as there is value for them in what I say, then I'm happy, right? And that's why I actually try to, in my speeches and in my book and in my mentorship, is to make sure that I create value for them. And they can use that to do something better, right? So increase their likelihood of being successful, make less mistakes, make them faster, and so forth.
When I was reading your book, I felt there were so many tips and so many good teachings about your experience and then whatever you have created after Waze was sold. But I found 2 things that I love the most. First of all is being love about failures. So anytime you have a failure, don't feel bad. Actually, you're learning. That's one of your points. And the second one that I like the most is you always need to find first a problem and then get in love with the problem. And after you have a problem, then you can find whatever is the solution. How do you get to those 2 points in your life, and why do you promote so much failure and the problem, which is different?
So there's 2 different things, right? So the reason, and by the way, you know, I'm with the t-shirt Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution. I'm wearing those t-shirts for more than a decade now. So then I named the book after the t-shirt, so not the other way around. This is my philosophy for a long while. And the reason is simple. Look, Now, when you are going into a new journey of building a startup or building a business, then at the end of the day, your essence is about value creation. You are trying to create value. If you will be creating value, you will be successful. The simplest way to create value is solve a problem. That's the simplest way, right? Start with a problem. Now, what happens is that when you start with the problem, then the problem is going to serve as the North Star of your journey. And when you have a North Star, you're going to make less deviation from the course and you increase the likelihood of being successful. But it's also your story that you're about to tell is going to be way more compelling. Just imagine that we will be here in 2007. You might be a small kid by that time, but before I started Waze, and I will tell you, you know what, I'm going to build an AI crowdsource-based navigation system. And you're going to say, oh yeah, very interesting. But you don't care. If I will tell you I'm going to help you to avoid traffic jams, then you do care. And when your customer cares about what you are doing, they are going to help you to become successful. So for me, it's always start with the problem. Think of a problem, a big problem, something that is worth solving, something that the world will be better place if you solve it. And then ask yourself, so who has this problem? Now, if you happen to be the only person on the planet with this problem, go to a therapist, way cheaper and faster than building a startup. But if a lot of people actually have this problem, what you really want to do next is go and speak with those people and understand their perception of the problem, and only then start to think about the solution. Now, if you follow this path and your solution works, it's guaranteed that you are creating value. If you start with the solutions, you might be building something that no one cares, and that's going to be really frustrating. But there is another thing that is going to happen. When you speak with people and the problem is irrelevant for them, they will tell you, oh, I don't know. Oh, maybe I have a friend that have this problem. Not sure, but maybe, and so forth. But if they actually have this problem, what they will tell you is, no, 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 no. This is not the problem. The problem is, and they will give you their version of the problem. And really what happens when this dialogues happens, you kind of fall in love with the problem. You think that they're sending you on a mission to solve that. And then you have a mission. So this is the part of falling in love with the problem. The journey itself, and you know, this book goes through the multiple phases of the journey of building a startup. And building a startup is very different than other businesses, because other businesses, you know what is your product, you know what you're selling, you know how you're selling it, you know what's the price, and so forth. And so you have all those established, and you need to keep on executing them. When you start your startup journey, you don't know what's your product. And so you need to explore that to figure out product market fit. And then you need to figure out business model, and then you need to figure out growth and so forth. And each one of them is going to be a journey that I can describe in 3 dimensions, right? This is going to be a roller coaster journey with ups and downs and ups and downs, and way more frequent than anything else. It's going to be a journey of failures. Look, we're trying to build something new that no one did before. And we think that we know exactly what we're doing, but the reality is that we don't. So we try. We try one thing and it doesn't work. We try another thing and it doesn't work. We keep on trying different things until we find one thing that does work. And that buys us a ticket to the next part of the journey, right? And so if you realize that this is going to be a journey of failures, then there are 2 immediate conclusions. The first one is that if you're afraid to fail, you already fail because you are not going to try. Albert Einstein used to say that if you haven't failed, that's because you haven't tried new things before. Look, if you are going to ask all successful people in the world what made them successful, they will tell you the journey of failures until I figure that out. Right? The other conclusion is that you have to fail fast, because when you fail fast, you still have plenty of time to make another attempt, to build another version of the product, to try another go-to-market approach, to try a different business model, and so forth. And so just imagine that we play basketball and you need to score from half court. Now, if you are not Steph Curry and you have one shot, it's very unlikely that you're going to make it. But if you have actually a lot of shots, one of them you're going to make. And so this is why you need to fail fast. And so to a certain extent, I would say the biggest enemy of good enough is perfect. You don't need to be perfect in order to win the market. You need to be good enough. And the way that you are going to become good enough is that you start with not good enough. And you listen to the customers and you iterate and iterate and iterate until you become good enough. And this is always the journey, right? So And the first part of the journey is always about figuring out product market fit, right? And product market fit is really simple. That means that you create value to your customers. If you do not figure out product market fit, you will die, as simple as that. You never heard of a company that did not figure out product market fit. They simply died. Once they do figure out product market fit, they don't change that anymore, right? So just think of, all the apps that you're using every day, from searching Google, using Waze, WhatsApp, Gmail, Netflix, Instagram, whatever it is. And you ask yourself, what is the difference between any of those today and the first time that you have used that? And the answer is that there is no difference. We are using Waze today the same way that we used Waze for the first time in our life. We're searching Google today the same way that we did it for the first time in our life. So once a company figure out product market fit, they don't change that anymore. This is the value that they create. What we don't know is how long it took them to get there. And this is really, really long journey. For Waze, it was 4 years. For Microsoft, it was 5 years. For Netflix, 10 years. Even if you look at the OpenAI and you say, oh, no, ChatGPT just started. Wait a minute, OpenAI is 7 years old, right? So just started, but 7 years to get to where they are today, right? So it's always long journey to get there. And the most important part in this journey is that product market fit have one metric, retention. That's really simple, right? If you create value, they will come back. That's it, right? If they're not coming back, that means that you're not creating value, and you need to keep on iterate. And you keep on iterate by speaking with the users, understand what is the issue, and build the next version, and the next version, and the next version, and the next version, until you get there.
Yeah, I love that point. I read it several times as an entrepreneur myself as well. And I find myself something interesting about the book, and it's that it feels like every time you fail, every time you have created something. Here in Colombia, there is some say numbers about people who entrepreneurs and who create a business. And what they say is that after 70% of people fail in Colombia, they never try it again because they're too afraid of, which is a big, massive mistake. So people are afraid of losing money. People are afraid of being stressed. People are afraid of trying again. What will you say to them, or how to overpass that fears of failing again?
So I would say two things, right? So number one, second-time entrepreneur have a way higher likelihood of being successful because of the experience, right? And still in Colombia, we have, in general in Latin America, we have high fear of failure. Part of what you are doing in the media is actually need to promote entrepreneurs, right? You need to basically tell the world entrepreneurs are heroes because they're trying to change the world. Even if they're unsuccessful, they're trying, which is way better than not trying. And that way we encourage lower fear of failure, and hopefully we'll have more entrepreneurs. And the more entrepreneurs that we have, then more successful entrepreneurs we will have. Look, the startup ecosystem have evolved dramatically in Latin America. In general, you think of when I was launching Waze here in 2010, there was one unicorn in the entire Latam. That was Mercado Libre.
Oh.
Today, Mercado Libre is a $100 billion company, and there are 50 different unicorns throughout the continent, and there are unicorns in Colombia, right? Rappi is a perfect example, right? But at the end of the day, the ecosystem have evolved dramatically, and part of it is that more people are willing to try. And this is really, really important. At the end of the day, if there is one thing that I will tell usually older people is teach your children to fail. Encourage them to fail. Because if you're afraid to fail, then you're not going to get out of your comfort zone. If you're not getting out of your comfort zone, you don't know what is it that you're missing. But you might be missing an opportunity for happiness. Not just success, but happiness. And we want our children to know that it's okay to fail. And we need to encourage them to fail. And the most important part is that if you encourage them to fail, then after that, there is no judgment, right? So you cannot tell them, you know what, if you fail, it's okay. And then they come back and you say, why did you fail, right? No, that doesn't work, right? If you want to encourage them, then you tell them, okay, so what have we learned, right? And that's it.
First funny question that I received was, is it true that people who helps the maps when they collect candies, where they say if there's traffic jams, do they get better routes than the people who doesn't work? True or false?
False. Definitely false. The algorithm works in a way that it's actually calculate for each individual the current route based on the current traffic condition. That's it.
The second question about true or false is there any route, for example, if there are going to be 1,000 drivers getting the main route, does Waze send those value customers from the app to a certain different route, which is going to be faster, or always is going to be sending through the faster route, whatever the map says?
So false, it's calculated the fastest route each time for each time that you actually try to a new route. So if you recalculate route, it might give you a different route because meanwhile, traffic conditions have changed.
I had some notes about the book. You might correct if I'm wrong, but is it true that Waze was actually one of the first unicorns of Israel?
So Waze is the first consumer app unicorn of Israel. Before that, there were many companies that were doing B2B and they were sold for higher valuation even.
When you mentioned was one of the first unicorns as an app user, how did it felt to be one of those first person in Israel to be achieving these amazing point of life? And did you feel different after having one unicorn, or life kept the same?
So I'm a lucky person. Right? I have a purpose in life, and my purpose is about value creation. And Waze creates a lot of value to a lot of drivers in many places, not just in Israel, here in Bogota, here in Colombia, in most of Latin America, in the US, in most of Europe, and so forth. So value creation is my purpose. And therefore, after Waze was acquired, I kept on building new startups in order to create more value. And I actually have a sense that this book is going to create, the impact of this book is going to be even more dramatic in terms of value creation, because there will be many other entrepreneurs that will become some more successful because of that. It's a lot of proud, right? So you, and the proud in particular is because you see people using it everywhere, right? You take a taxi from the airport to here and they're using Waze, right? And when you drive, you look around you to see if other people are using Waze. And so the proudness is because of that, because of the people that are using that, and because I know that I've created something that they are using and create value for them. And in that sense, I think the value creation is the biggest reward. And in consumer app, the biggest reward is when people come and say, thank you, you helped me with X, Y, Z, whatever it is.
From the value that you created, it's been about 10 years since you sold Waze to Google. And there's many questions around it. You said it in your book and you said in your interviews that one of the most popular questions that they do to you is, was it a great choice to sell or not selling Waze? And your answer is great, because I love your answer. But how do you manage to get to that answer, and which was the answer?
At the end of the day, in your life, there are intersections that you're going to make a decision. And if you choose to go right, you don't know what would happen if you would choose to go left. Right? So if you'll tell me whether or not Waze today would be worth way more than $1.1 billion, absolutely yes. But what we don't know is whether or not it would become what it is today. And so when you make a decision, by definition, this is the right decision, because you don't know what it would be like if you choose a different path. I can give you a very simple example. Google, in the beginning of their journey, they struggled. They were unable to raise capital, and they approached Yahoo and asked Yahoo to acquire them. And Yahoo asked them, okay, how much? And they said $2 million. 2 million, not 2 billion, not 2 trillion, just 2 million, right? And Yahoo said no. And you look at it and you say, big mistake. We don't know that. We don't know what would have happened if they would have said yes, right? Now, if you'll tell me, okay, Yahoo is going to be the parent company and Google is going to be underneath, and therefore Yahoo will become a monster, Maybe. But more likely is that they will swallow the small team into the corporate and do something else with that. And Larry and Sergey will get frustrated and they would leave. This is more likely. But we don't know. And this is why when you make a decision, you don't know what it will be like if you choose a different path. Now, in general, in most cases, we are afraid to make decisions because when you make a decision, that also means that you are going to assume responsibility for the consequences of that decision. And most people don't like that, right? And so most people don't like to make hard decisions. And in general, if you are building a startup, if you're a CEO of a startup, then your life is going to be full of making hard decisions, and you have to make them. Because if you don't, you're unable to lead. Turns out to be the most important behavior of successful CEOs is making decisions with conviction. And for startup CEOs, this is the second most important one. The first one is never give up, right? If you give up, then this is it, game over. If you don't give up, then you will keep on, you get to fight another day. So in that sense, I would say, and when I was young, my dad once told me that I approached him and I told him, look, I have now two options and I don't know which one to choose. And he said, you know what, he reached out to his pocket, get a coin out and say, I'm gonna flip the coin. And before the coin drops, you're gonna make the decision. In most cases, we know what is the right decision. We are looking for confirmation. It's really easy to get the confirmation for the right decision. Occasionally, this is about the team. Occasionally, this is about where to go. Occasionally, this is about whether or not you're gonna take sign a bad deal and or not sign a bad deal.
So, whether you mention what are the main things to be successful in life with the entrepreneur or with your business, you mentioned something about luck, and your perspective about luck is something interesting in life and in business. I think luck is something that it has to happen for you to be successful, or it might happen.
The most successful real estate builder in New York today is Silverstein. They have built the World Trade Center and pretty much everything on the Hudson. So very successful, right? And he was once asked how we become such a successful. Say this is 85% luck and 15% know-how and ability and so forth. And then he was asked, if you can change one thing, what is it that you're going to be? He said, I'm going to replace the 15% know-how with additional 15% luck, right? So luck is always good. But we don't control luck. No, we do. And the way that we do control luck is, for me, the definitions of luck in business is when opportunity meets readiness. Readiness is something that you control. Opportunity, you don't. And so when you see an opportunity, most people wouldn't even see that opportunity because they're not ready for it. But if you are ready for it, then you'll take it. Now, later on, you'll say, I was lucky, right? The opportunity was right there. No, you were ready.
I think I love that one because as a content creator, sometimes I do tips and I do some speakings for someone who wants to be a content creator, and I have the same point of view, and is in social media, luck is something that it needs to happen for you to become more viral or to be something more recognized, but you must be ready whenever it happens, because if you're not ready, you're just going to be viral, and then in a month or so, people are going to forget who you were. So I love that point.
The challenge in content creation is at the beginning, it might be luck, but later on, this is a product market fit, right? They will come back if you create value for them. So you need to keep on creating valuable content throughout the journey, because otherwise they will give up, right? It's really easy to go someplace else.
From someone who uses Google Maps, Apple Maps, why should they change to Waze? Or you think this point, is it the same app as the other ones? Which is like, you think?
This is why I tell people you need to get your product to the level of good enough. Because when you are good enough, people are not going to switch away. The cost of switching is make a new decision, learn something new, do something different, and most people don't like changes, right? So if you're good enough, then people are not going to change. And the only place that they will run into something that they will rethink is that if people will tell them, or they will find out that it's not good enough. Now, generally speaking, Waze and Google Maps are very different, right? Google Maps, or if I would ask 100 people that are using Waze, how often they use Waze, they will tell me every day. If I would ask 100 people that are using Google Maps, how often they use Google Maps, they will tell me when I need it, or when I need to walk, when I need something else, right? And so the use case is different, and therefore the apps are different. This one is built for everyday use for commuters, right? So going from office to work, right? And this one is for infrequent user, and therefore it's much more detailed and have way more alternatives or way more options in the app. I know people that are using Waze for driving and Google Maps for walking, right? Because Waze is not good for walking. Is there an incentive to switch? Not really. If something is good enough for you, then you're not going to switch.
Make the most of our followers was Bogota is one of the most traffic jams cities, I think, in the world, I may say. And we might spend 2 hours, 3 hours in a traffic jam. What will you do if you spend daily 2 or 3 hours in a traffic jam? What will be your
So I would quit. I would do something else. Right? But think about it this way, right? So every place that I go, people telling me, "Oh, you don't understand. Our traffic jams are the most severe there are." And Bogota actually have a lot of traffic jams, right? São Paulo is worse. Mexico City is worse. Jakarta in Indonesia is worse. Mumbai or Delhi are worse, right? So there are worse places than Bogota, but really traffic jams here are really bad. And at the end of the day, and this is something that we need to realize, I started Waze in 2007 in order to help people to avoid traffic jams. Today, there are more traffic jams than in 2007. So obviously I'm not done. And I'm trying to address some of the issues, but at the end of the day, when you really try to abstract or understand the nature of the beast of traffic jams, then you need to look at the highway and assume one lane and 1 kilometer in length during the busy hour, right? So one lane, 1 kilometer. In this 1 kilometer, there are about 40 to 50 vehicles. In those 40 to 50 vehicles, there are only about 50 people. So 50 people occupy 1 kilometer, way too much. And in order to avoid traffic jams, what you need to do is change the ratio between number of passengers and number of vehicles. Public transportation does that. And if we will have way better public transportation, then maybe people would switch to that. Bicycles, I've seen a lot of bicycles. Right? The size of the bicycle is smaller, and therefore you can actually have in 1 kilometer way more people than in cars, right? And so there are many ways that can be improved. But at the end of the day, if we do not change this ratio, we will be stuck in traffic forever.
Again, I think people keep buying cars and keep buying cars. So yeah, traffic jam is going to get worse.
In Tel Aviv, and traffic jams in Tel Aviv are bad. Not as bad as here, but they're bad. I try to avoid driving. So I would be riding my bicycle. I would be taking public transportation. I would do anything in order to avoid driving in the city.
Driving in the city. One of the main things that I want to answer after having your book and reading your book is, after you sold Waze to Google, you have created, I think, 8, or you mentioned 8 more businesses or apps or startups from your learning. What is it your motive? Because I haven't, in the entire book, you never mention money. You only mention money when you're speaking about having a seed to get money to get your business running, but you never mention money. So what is your motive? Because from all the books that I have read before, the main motive for many of the entrepreneurs is money. And it doesn't seem money to be your business. So what is your motive besides solving problems?
So let's not get confused, right? I'm doing this in order to get money eventually. But for me, the money is not the objective, it's the result. The objective is to create value. So when you create value, everything else will follow. you are going to be successful. And if you create a lot of value, then you're going to be very successful. And part of it is that you will get a lot of money at the end. That's really simple. That's true for every business in the world. Right? So you focus on the value creation, and the rest will follow. And you know, most of my startups, no, all of my startups, they have a common denominator of doing good and doing well. Right? So the doing well part of it is important, right? This is going to be successful business. And guess what? If you have percentage, if you have somewhat ownership of successful business, then you will get money. But the money is the result. The objective is the value creation.
Love that. The second question I was gonna do for you was, which has been that point of life where you think, I'm stopped, I'm not sure how to get out of here? When was it?
So my biggest failure is yet to come.
Okay.
I reserve the right to have bigger failures and bigger successes in my journey to come. And look, I shut down companies because they were unsuccessful, and this is always frustrating, and occasionally it's even more frustrating than you would like it to be. But at the end of the day, look, you are building something into an uncertain world. Right? Building a startup is an uncertain journey, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And tomorrow you might be facing an ice wall that you need to climb, and you try to do that with your nails, right? And this is really hard, right? And then the next day you figure out that the ice is melted and there is a path to go there. And the day after that there is an ice wall and there are people upstairs that throwing stones on you, right? So the journey is hard. It's really hard. And there are so many times that you nearly died. And you kind of get used to it. You basically say, look, I nearly died so many times, then I'm not afraid to die anymore.
Nicest advice or the most learning advice someone has ever given to you, and who was it?
My parent taught me to fail. I would come to my dad with a crazy idea, right? And he knew that it's not going to work, right? But he would say, why don't you give it a try? And obviously I tried, and obviously it failed, right? And after that, there was no judgment, right? Just a question. So what have you learned? And this is really important because I'm not afraid to fail. And so and I also realized that by and large, we don't know. You would think that, okay, this chapter is going to be absolutely amazing because so many people would like to watch that. We don't know that. Even if it's not, then it's not. Then we'll try another chapter and another chapter and another chapter. And this is the reality. We don't know, and we need to accept the fact that we don't know. We think that we know, or we basically say, okay, this one has higher likelihood, so let's try that first, right? Which is excellent. But not being afraid to fail and realizing that we don't know, and therefore we have to try, is the biggest advice that I got. And I got that through my living with as a child. Right? Over the years, this is one of the things that I try to deliver in the book is that, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail.
It's been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for giving us this time. Of course, I want this book to be signed and to have a follow. And that's been all for today. Uri, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day in Bogota. Thank you, Uri.